Hello, and welcome to the Reach or Miss Show, the podcast for the customer-focused entrepreneur, where Hayut Yogev speaks with entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs about reaching or missing the critical point of approaching the right customer with the right message at the right time and place. The point where business success starts. And here is your host, Hayut Yogev.
Reach or Miss, Episode 47. Samuel Pavin is a brand strategist and director of Samuel Pavin Group Ltd, specializing in business and marketing strategy. A marketing lead for ilab, Startup Space and Accelerator, and a key opinion leader of Huawei. Samuel has a strong focus on the idea of tech with purpose, how technology can truly be put to use to better life, business, and the world we live in. Samuel Pavin, what a pleasure to have you here. Hi.
Hi there, pleasure is shared. I'm really happy to be here as well.
Yeah, it's so great you're here with us, and I just shared with our audience everything that you have done in the past, and I would like you to share with us what are you doing and most passionate about today, and where are you heading?
Yeah, I'm actually doing quite a fair amount of things already, and I'm pretty sure edit to a lot more actually. But right now I'm kind of spreading my time between a role of marketing lead with the startup space and startup accelerator at the university in Queensland in Australia.
Yeah.
So kind of getting back to some of the older days of when I was working with startups in France with IBM as well. At the same time, I've been working as a consultant for quite a few years, and I've kept doing that since moving to Australia. So I'm also doing brand strategy, so working in between business and marketing for brands, whether it is startups, for events, conferences, or bigger companies, which keeps me a little bit busy as well.
Sure.
Yeah, beginning of the year, and all of a sudden a lot of projects come up, so it's pretty interesting.
That's great.
And yeah, no, definitely. And I'm still working as well on the social media side and more general, I would say, public profile side of things, because I'm an ambassador for Hootsuite and a few other social media companies. I'm also a KOL, so a key opinion leader with Huawei, the technology company. So that also keeps me a little busy on the side.
Wow. I hope you find time for something else, but what are you most passionate about?
It's actually a lot of things, but I think the most I would say is what I find in the startup world is the interaction with people, and it's meeting new people and getting to learn so much about technology, about where the technology and where the world is headed, or where we're actually driving it, and how we can leverage new technologies. It's been an amazing journey because I've basically been involved with startups for the past 10 years at a fairly high level. And as I was mentioning, for instance, working with IBM, I was meeting startups from every type of industry, every size, every geography. And this is amazing how much I've been able to learn about new industries, about products, about new technologies. And this is what I'm literally craving. For a few years in between, I was doing a lot more consulting on the brand strategy part. I've just gone back to the startup world, I'd say less than a year ago now with the university and with the accelerator. And I just realized how much I missed that. Not having all these daily interactions and challenging myself as well to learn so much more as well is amazing. That's really what I love.
I think what we are both sharing is being at the middle between the startup world and their point of view and the branding world and the world of the customer's point of view. So it's not many people are there today because, a lot of things that has to do with digital marketing has nothing to do with branding and customers' point of view. But I think you're in between, and it sounds very interesting to be there, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, I've actually had the chance, even in previous jobs, to find myself in kind of halfway through different positions. So it was an interesting start for my career, which was very, very weird because we were still kind of looking at traditional jobs and traditional roles more than this kind of multifaceted roles.
Yeah.
But finding myself here is just another world to to discover, to make sense of. I think it ties in to the consulting work I was doing in the past as well. But on the other, I mean, going the other way, bringing what customers and what the audiences are actually looking at and looking for to the startups and to the small businesses, which is something that still has to be, I think, explained in quite a few cases these days. And I think still businesses now understand that social media are not necessarily just a billboard or a broadcasting tool, but there's still a bit of a divide or a gap between understanding that and understanding the actual requirements or requests or even just expectations from the customers from this side.
I'm wondering, you talked a lot about the startups, but who would you consider your customers? Who are they actually?
Yeah. There's a bit of different type of customers. I would actually work, or I'm working, I would say, with some startups actually. So pretty young or fairly small technology companies mostly. But I've also been working with some bigger companies, whether it be on conferences or the actual strategy, mostly on the marketing and social media actually strategies. So I've got a range of customers which is fairly wide, and I'm not limiting myself to any industry or to any geography. So I basically have customers going from Europe to Asia to Australia.
And most of them are startup founders or entrepreneurs?
I'd say half of them would
Okay.
be in the startup slash entrepreneurs side of the business. Yeah.
Hmm. What are the main concepts or beliefs that you have regarding the way a startup or entrepreneurial business? Because, this podcast is about entrepreneurial
Yeah.
businesses and about entrepreneurs and for entrepreneurs. Do you have any concepts or beliefs that are relevant for entrepreneurs regarding the way an entrepreneurial business should approach its customers? And I would also like you to share with us your best advice for entrepreneurs regarding their customers' approach or focus.
Yeah. I think I would say there's both my vision and both my best advice would be the same, more or less, because this is something I've seen a lot. And I'm working with startups on a daily basis, even in the accelerator here. And I think the main point or the main item I see with them is that they all kind of, I wouldn't say fail, but they don't start by trying to understand their customers. And that's, I think, the main missing link in their chain to success is get started by reviewing your audience and understanding where they stand, what they want, what they're after, and what's going to appeal to them. I've seen so many people kind of getting started, working on a prototype or a product, and doing a bit of market research, but not in depth review or not in depth enough, at least, to understand that in many cases they're going in the wrong direction. So I'd say just make sure you understand your customer. I mean, it's become very easy as well to survey people or just to ask people around. And when I say ask people around, it doesn't include the friends and families and people in startups around as well, because all these people are in the same bubble. It's either the family bubble or the startup bubble, and everybody speaks more or less the same language or understands more or less the same thing. But that's not what the real audience is. If you're selling to, I would say, general customers, the question is get out there, speak to people on the street, in shops, wherever they are. Or if you're selling to enterprises, then get out there and speak to buyers in companies or anybody who's working in a real company, not the friends, family, or who's going to be like either very nice or not understand what you're talking about.
I think the issue is that many times entrepreneurs and startup founders just want to hear what they are looking for.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to go to the very familiar places and hear the answers, because it's so scary to hear that what you've been dreaming and working on is not such a hit.
Yeah.
I guess.
It is, but that's part, I think, of, I would say, of the support that startups and the startup ecosystem needs, is just having people there to make sure that founders understand that the road is bumpy, that sometimes people are going to, I would say, slap them across the face with truth, but that's part of the journey, and that's where I think it ties into the notion of failure as well. I mean, failure is not a failure as long as you learn from it. It's exactly the same here. I mean, hard truths are harsh and can be painful, but as long as they set you on the right way and potentially on the road to success, I think at the end of the day, they don't really matter so much. So
It's great that you are talking about failures, because what I would like to ask you now, I know you've got some very interesting successes, but I would like to ask you first, what is your biggest, most critical failure with customers, the one that affected your entrepreneurial journey the most?
I'm not really sure if it's the most in the journey, but it was, I would say, the best and biggest learning, I think. I started working with a startup a few years ago, actually a startup based out of the UK as a CMO. And the business was both addressing individuals, so B2C, and customers, enterprise customers, so B2B. And at the end of the day, we didn't manage to get enough tractions or traction overall, I would say. And despite a few potential in the enterprise world, I would say the growth of the company was too slow. The audience was not picking up any of the strategies or campaigns we put out there, and the company basically failed. As we usually say, failure is hard, and the best way to not feel it so much is to learn from it, which I did. But it was, I think, one big failure, and at the same time, a very big dose of wisdom and understanding of, I would say, the rat race in which we are in the startup world as well, and that things sometimes we think are going to go right and they go absolutely wrong. So. It's just a good reminder as well that we have to be prepared like 150%, because 110% is not even enough. I used to say I always try to prepare for everything and every risk, and minus maybe a comet hitting the Earth. But in any case, there's always going to be a comet or an asteroid hitting the Earth. So that's why I think you have to be the most prepared,
but also prepared to the unexpected, isn't it?
Definitely. There's always going to be unexpected anyway.
Always. I want to ask you, what exactly was the failure there? What did you fail with?
Well, I would say...
Yeah. I understand that it closed, but what did you fail with? Where was it? What did you figure out?
Yeah, I think it was two sides. It's figuring out that the initiatives we put in place to get traction with individual customers were not the best, or we didn't go hard enough in the early days. I was too much trying to nurture a steady growth where we should have actually gone just all out on the marketing and on reaching out to media and just putting the name out there, but over a short period of time, because that's there were a few good moments in the news which were tied to the business and which could have been leveraged, whereas in the long term it didn't work out. The other learning was a semi-learning, because on the B2B side, we always know that the decision times are very long, and we cannot just got sucked into this. And I know that I would never pursue a deal that's going to go on and on forever with changing contacts and new people coming on every time and all these things. And I
Yeah.
would say that, and I just didn't implement that as well when it comes to doing it. And that's, I think, part of being lost in the rat race of trying to survive and trying to just get business through the door. So I think it's both like a practical learning on what could have been done better in the strategies and in the campaigns on the marketing and business development side.
Sure.
There's also a personal learning or a more organizational learning of just taking a step back for a moment, look at where I'm headed, and make sure I'm not running towards a wall like a headless chicken. Just stop, reflect for a second, and get back on track. But yeah.
Sounds great to me. And now I would like to ask you about your biggest success. I would like you to tell us the story of your greatest, most significant success as a result of the right customer focus, or something you did right about approaching your customers.
Yeah, I think the best success to date, just in the way it's been built, is the work I did with IBM, which is not actual corporate work as such, but I did take a project, and it was about 8 years ago, which was to work with startups. And there was literally nothing. I was like starting with a blank page at that point in France. And I was given 3 months to put together an initiative, so something which would then become IBM Global Entrepreneur, the program for startups. And within 3 months, I basically built and launched and then went on to lead the program for 5 years. And I think that's been one of the biggest successes, because on this side, not only was the program launched and then successful in the early days, meeting the metrics and the goals and growing, but it kept growing not only in volume, but also in quality, and more importantly, in actual return on investment over the years.
For IBM?
For IBM. And that's something I've seen not only within IBM, but I've seen countries not managing to get as much growth, especially when it comes to making money out of it. But that's also something I've seen in many other countries and in many other programs, where when it comes to working with startups, whether it's accelerator, innovation program, incubator, it's often mostly a matter of spending a lot of money and not getting that much through the door. It's always a bit of a risky bet. Whereas the way we built the program, and we built also a lot of confidence in the brand, meaning that IBM actually went from being this big tech company that no startup would know about, minus the fact that they were this big tech company and wouldn't have imagined seeing in the startup world, to being actually one of the major partners in the whole ecosystem, and a company that people, and when I say people, is people in startups, entrepreneurs, would consider they could trust. So I think that was a massive, still up to this date.
It is a huge success because, making some even very small turn with such conglomerates, such huge organizations like IBM, and managing to make startups think that they are worth considering to partner with as the most innovative partner, it's a huge success. And it takes me to ask you, Can you recommend the best or most effective technological or digital tool that's related to customer focus, marketing, or sales? And what I mean here, there is a new tool any half an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking for the new one to add to the list, but to those that are successful entrepreneurs, the successful people are working with and help them succeed.
Yeah, it's going to be fairly easy, because even when it comes to social media, we had this discussion quite a few times in the past with friends and with fellow marketers. I tend not to chase the shiny things or the new things, and I actually tend to stick to some of the older networks and tools, to be honest. But the one tool I would say is very important for startups and entrepreneurs, and that they don't necessarily take on board straight away, is not even a social media or a shiny tool, it's just a CRM, whichever it is, but at least a CRM that will allow to capture every single lead, and that's part of the funnel of capturing emails, capturing contacts, and then we're allowed to manage them and to organize them and to reach out to these people. And we're talking both business development, we're talking both marketing, we're talking sales. And I think that's the central piece that a lot of startups these days don't really think about, or not in the early stages. And I still see a lot of businesses work around with Excel spreadsheets and just a few bits and pieces here and there, and only start getting, I would say, the foundations sorted a few months later when they're starting to talk to more than 10 or 20 potential customers. I think it's a massive tool and a massive advantage to have it on board and ready from the start. And I've had the recent example here with a startup. They've actually used HubSpot from the start, and their whole business is in order. And when we're saying the whole business, as I was mentioning, it's from capturing expressions of interest or leads to actually chasing them, to marketing to their larger audience. So I could not recommend that enough, beyond all the the fancy, shiny upcoming tools are already gone.
Definitely. And I will make it harder on you. And I would like to ask you, do you recommend HubSpot, or do you have any CRM softwares that you can recommend?
Yeah, just a few. There's like so many that I haven't tested. I used one for quite a while, and I'm still using it actually, that I like. It's called Capsule CRM. What I did like initially when I took it on board was the fact that it was available on the web and on mobile as well. So it was very convenient on the go. And there's a pretty good integration also with social networks. So since I was working, and I'm still working a fair bit with social media, it allows me to get access or to pull automatically my contacts presence on the web. So whether it's Google Plus, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, etc., whatever is available publicly, which made it really convenient.
Capsule CRM, we'll put a link on the show notes. That's great. Any other one?
Any other one? The Oracle Cloud is not bad. It's just maybe not the best for startups in the first place, just because of the price. HubSpot do have their specific startup offer, which is pretty good, so and allows to not pay a fortune as well from the start, which is usually one of the main points as well for decisions for startups.
Sure, because then you lack the information. Sure.
Exactly.
Thank you. It's a great recommendation, I believe. And is there any person, like a service provider, mentor, consultant, advertiser? It can also be a book, but if there is a person, it's cooler, that really had a major impact of your customer success and can help other entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, there was a person in the first place who's both public but not so public at the same time, which is a bit troublesome, and is mostly French. But I had a colleague who's called Jean-Christophe Deschamps. He's a French guy, and we actually came to work in marketing at IBM at the same time. He's mostly, a photographer and working around photography and blogging. But it was the first inspiration, I think, when it comes to addressing customers and to bringing analytics into the digital marketing mix. And we're talking about 10 years ago now.
Yeah, sure.
That's also why it makes a bit more sense. But he really was writing a lot about how to put together a proper strategy based not only on like a gut feeling or whatever we want to sell, but actually on what the audience wants. So, but Jean-Christophe, is French and writes in French, and I think has turned a bit more to the photo side now. So it might not be the best person for an international audience.
Nothing in English?
Another person I really look up to and who's doing amazing things when it comes to writing in-depth pieces is Diana Adams. And we came to talk to each other when she was still working with Post Planner, who was also a social media scheduling tool. And she's now doing tech journalism, but she's blogging as well around technology and business. And everything social media. And she's got the same very strong approach on putting the customer first and really drawing what the customers or what the audience would want prior to just running or towards a wall or completely missing.
So we'll put links to both of them, either sites or blogs, so any of our listeners can reach them and read their blogs. And I would like to ask you, there are many factors that affect the successes. But usually there is one main factor that really affects each one of us.
Yep.
And I would like to ask you about your factor. What is your key success factor?
Yeah, I think there would be one key success factor, which just have done whatever I wanted to do in my life, which has literally driven me from start to not finish, because I'm not finished. But I've always made my own decisions and followed through, and which I think might also be one of the differences. But I left France one day on a whim to go to London and just try and find a job there. And I was still a student at the time, and I ended up working in a restaurant actually, and that was very early days. That restaurant was one of the restaurants owned by Gordon Ramsay, and I ended up having the most amazing experience because the level of quality and the requirements and the expectations are just through the roof. It's next level. And I think it's something that has stuck with me as well when it comes to learning to work hard and to work well at the same time. So, and that was one thing. I just later on.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, that's a
It's a beautiful story.
yeah, it was an amazing experience. But when I finished university, I had a mandatory internship to do, for instance. And I decided that I would use this internship, or I would find an internship that would get me a job. So for a few months, I went out there looking for a paid internship, which would be in the surroundings of where I was living, and that would serve as springboard for a job. And I did just that, and I started working with BNP Paribas, one of the big European banks at the time. And I would say, and so on. But I would never just sit down, do nothing. I keep looking for opportunities. And when something is of interest to me, I would say I dig in. So, and that's been all my life like this, and I keep doing it. So hopefully more success will come.
I'm sure there will. It's unique. I mean, following the opportunities is a unique way of going through these journeys and in the business world, and it sounds that it works great for you. Before my final question and asking you what is the best way to contact with you, I would like to ask you my mountain question. As I always say in any episode, this journey of trying to take ownership of a brand in the mind of the customers and making this change, I always imagine it as climbing a mountain to get to the peak, to establish a new habit of using a new brand and then going to the next mountain. And I would like to ask you whether you had any experience with a physical mountain. Did you ever climb the mountain or wished to climb a mountain? And as I say, do you have any relationships with mountains in your history?
Yeah, definitely. I do have a few, a few history or a few pieces of history. Early on, not really with an actual mountain, because I come from Brittany in France, where I think the highest mountain is actually a hill, which must be 300 meters high. But I remember one of these experiences, which was a bit like jumping on a train and going to London with just a bag and no job and nothing, was when I was younger, and I think I must have been maybe 10, 12 years old. We're just running around through the woods, and I lived in the country, and we came across this hill, which was maybe, I'd say now maybe 100 meters high, not really, really high. just in the woods, rocks everywhere and branches and everything. And for whatever reason, decided that it was a challenge that was good enough to attempt. So I basically started climbing that hill, which proved to be a bit more dangerous and a bit more difficult than expected.
Oh,
And that was actual climbing.
like life sometimes, isn't it?
And so I ended up, finding myself at some point on one just small piece of rock, kind of stuck with nowhere to go up and not really much of an envy to go down. And well, finally managed to get to the top. And there was this mix, or these mixed feelings of maybe I'm going to die and that was stupid, but also getting to the top was just like having conquered the world as well. And in the end, it wasn't so bad a decision, but that was, I think, my first real experience with a mountain, or what felt like a mountain at the time.
It sounds so great because
Yeah.
you know, conquering the peak, conquering the top is so rewarding. So sometimes we forget how dangerous it was and what were the right or wrong decisions in the way.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was a very good experience. Well, at least in the end. Afterwards. Now, I did also a bit of mountain climbing and I would say just running around the place in a way, in the real mountains in the Pyrenees. But usually I went there in the summer, and I had another quite usual story for me, which was I went there in the summer, went out hiking for a few hours, and then found myself maybe, I don't know, very, very far away from where I lived with basically 1 hour of daylight left. So I literally had to run back on the track. And the only way to make it in time was literally to climb the mountain this time and get back to the summit and just down because I was on the other side, which I did. I literally came back and it was dusk. So I could barely see where I was walking, but that was after the climb. I managed to get to the top of the mountain, and thank God it wasn't the highest one here. But just got to the peak. The sun was just setting, which was gorgeous, at least. The view was amazing.
I'm sure it was.
But that was another of the mountain stories. And I've got a thing. I would definitely love to go and climb the Kilimanjaro one day.
Oh, this is my mountain. You
Is
just
it?
stole my
Oh my God.
mountain, and I wrote it first. Yeah, I actually my kids are planning to go there, and they decided that when we were in Africa, so I chose it as to be my mountain. But I'll be happy to share it
We'll
with
share
you.
the mountain.
Yeah, let's share.
No, it's amazing. But yeah, this mountain is appealing. I mean, I discovered it when I was a kid as well, and it was so amazing to hear about a mountain with snow in Africa. There was this conflict of perception, which was amazing. And since then, I've seen, as everybody else, pictures, documentaries, and I've come to love the place and just the surroundings. And to be honest, like when we see the Mount Everest is getting so crowded with tourists, I was thinking maybe Kilimanjaro definitely sounds like a better.
Yeah, and being in Africa, I loved it so much. What a great mountain stories. I love that. And now I would like just to ask you, what is the best way to contact you and be in touch for any one of our listeners that would like to make a connection to you?
So I would say one easy way is to ping me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is pretty simple. It's at Sam Pavin, so SAMPAVIN. Otherwise, I think just contact me through my website, which is samuelpavin.com, which might be the easiest way then to get in touch. Just send me a note via the website.
That's great. We'll put it in the show notes and we'll have all the links there. And Samuel, that has been a pure pleasure talking with you. So thank you so much for coming here and sharing your wonderful stories with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a shared pleasure.
And bye-bye.
Bye now.
And for you, our listeners, until the next time, it all goes down to this. You either reach or miss. Keep reaching your goals and vision. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Reach or Miss Show, the podcast for the customer-focused entrepreneur. You can find all the information, links, and resources that was mentioned at the show in our website, reachormiss.com. See you next week.